We're joined now by Maître D, George Galloway. Is it your view that when things like what happened in Paris last weekend take place, that's Western foreign policy largely to blame?
I don't know about largely. It's partly to blame. It comes out of a swamp of alienation, and in France there are many elements to it that don't exist, at least yet, here. France has a very aggressively secular policy, banning certain modes of Islamic dress and so on. So there are particular grievances, and also the socio-economic position of Muslims and other minorities in France who are kind of banished to the banlieue, to the real slums, worse slums than we have here. These are all places where these grievances fester. But of course, there isn't any doubt that France's long history as an imperial power, our history more recently in Iraq, and both of our histories in Libya and Syria and so on, they're part of the mix.
Is Russian foreign policy to blame?
Actually, the Russian foreign policy, Mr. Lavrov is the most accomplished diplomat in the world today. I think most people in their private moments would agree with that, and I agreed with Michael in every particular. We need to make a coalition with Russia and deal a decisive series of blows to this death cult. And indeed, I said this on your program exactly 1 year ago.
I remember. What would that coalition consist of if we were to build a Western Russian coalition?
Well, we have to support those that are fighting. I mean, people talk about a ground war. There is already a ground war, and people have been fighting it for almost 5 years.
That's why so many people have been displaced.
Indeed. That's why we have to support those that are fighting that ground war, and that means Iraq, Syria, and the Kurds, and the others can supply air power, but they're not, as you put it very correctly, going to send soldiers in. None of them, Saudis, Jordanians, none of these people are going to send their soldiers into that maw. But the Syrian army can do it themselves if we stop supplying the other side, if we stop the Saudis and the Turks either facilitating or, in the case of the Saudis, actually paying for the men and material that have been fighting this war for almost 5 years.
Who are the Saudis paying? They're
paying what they would call moderate fanatics, people who only eat half your heart or cut your head half off.
What do you mean, like al-Nusra rather than Islamic State?
Yes, which is the local al-Qaeda affiliate, as you well know. But of course, insofar as there is any difference between these groups, ISIS merely take the weapons and the money off them, or they defect. Andrew, in his peerless thunder at the beginning of the show, counterposed the achievements of French civilization with a couple of bar owners from Belgium who came and shot a lot of people who didn't have guns and couldn't defend themselves. That's not an existential battle. This is a murder gang. It's a death cult. It consists of some thousands of people. We are millions, and don't forget this. The great majority of people killed by al-Qaeda and ISIS have been Muslims. Yeah. And the great majority of people fighting them in Syria are Sunni Muslims. So it's not even actually a sectarian polarization.
How has Jeremy Corbyn handled all this? What do you make of Jeremy Corbyn's response so far?
Well, you know me, so you would never confuse me with a liberal. And I think that on these matters, one has to be iron and steel hard. One has to say, if anyone comes here with guns and bombs, our police will shoot them down and stop them. There's no room for equivocation about that at all. Of course, a shoot-to-kill policy in general.
That's a different thing, of course.
Bad idea.
That can give back thoughts of Northern Ireland.
Indeed, Northern Ireland, or what Israel does in the occupied territories and so on. Apart from being wrong, they don't work. They make more terrorists. No, what the Labour leadership should do is be absolutely clear that when it comes to the safety and the defence of our people in our own island, on our own streets, then the police will have the full backing of the political leadership to gun them down if necessary. I'd shoot them myself with my own hands. I'd pull the trigger myself. I'd be happy to see them all dead in the street. These people are just about the most horrific group of people I have ever seen in my long political life. And I'm damn sure I'm not going to sit idly by while they're running around up and down Piccadilly with guns and bombs.
Are you by any chance available to lead the Labour Party?
Not at the moment.
Has Mr. Corbyn asked you to come back?
No, he has not. I think he has quite a few problems on his hands internally, and he probably doesn't want to add to them. And what would I be going back to? The Labour Party of Jeremy Corbyn or the Labour Party of some others? Present company accepted, because I have absolute admiration for Liz Kendall, a person of principle and bravery. But the backstabbers who are constantly trying to undermine him from behind the Arras, to continue our French...
I thought that was a town in northern France. Are you surprised that Mr. Corbyn, in some of his appointments, indeed most of his personal appointments, hasn't reached out more to the centre of the Labour Party? I mean, is he trying to provoke a PLP coup?
I don't think it needs much provoking. It's been underway since the very hour that he was declared. And most of the centrists, of course, the most competent ones, ruled themselves out of serving in the Labour cause, preferring to nurse their wrath on the backbenches. I think he's made a big mistake in appointing Hilary Benn as the Shadow Foreign Secretary. He's now a sword of Damocles over the Corbyn leadership.
Because if he goes, a lot are going to go.
Your former star, Michael's former sofa partner, Diane Abbott, could easily have been given that job. A woman, a black woman, an experienced woman, long-standing parliamentarian, and a key ally of his. She should have been given that job.
We learned tonight, Michael, that Theresa May is digging in against further cuts to the police because we've got the comprehensive spending review coming up next week. I mean, that's a wise move in the current circumstances for a Tory Home Secretary, for any Home Secretary, I would suggest, and a tough one for the Chancellor.
You're probably right. I mean, it'd be quite difficult for the Home Secretary to give way on police budgets just at the moment. I mean, of course, in many of these discussions, what you spend on things is not really what counts. It's what you get out the other end. It is the effectiveness of what you spend.
Even so, it's tough politics, I would suggest.
No, of course.
I mean, Mr. Roland is adding 17,000 to the Interior Ministry in France.
And the government has added 1,900 agents to MI5 and GCHQ.
They can't just conjure them up.
No, indeed. But nonetheless, all that having been said...
5,000 coppers are missing from London. And this is a time when we probably need 15,000 more coppers on the streets in London, and far more of them armed in the centre of London.
Because the French can do a lot more than that.
Listen,
I'm going to have to stop. It's such an important issue, but we've got one final item to get on. George Galloway, thank you for being with us.